They didn't fall in love because everything was perfect. They fell in love because every day, they chose each other again. In silence and in storms, in laughter and in tears. And that choice slowly became the secret behind a successful relationship. Once upon a time, two hearts met, not knowing they were about to learn the art of staying. Love came easily in the beginning, like a song playing on repeat, but success in their relationship didn't come from feelings alone. It came from habits, small, quiet habits, practiced daily, gently, lovingly, until they became unbreakable threads binding two souls together. A successful relationship is not built in grand moments, it is built in the way love behaves every day. In their love story, the most powerful words were never, "I love you," but, "I choose you." Choosing each other meant waking up and deciding that love was not just a feeling but an action. Some days the choice was easy, wrapped in laughter and warmth, and some days it was heavy, carried through misunderstandings and tired hearts. Yet, even on those days, they chose to stay. This habit turned love into loyalty and passion into permanence, teaching them that successful relationships grow when both partners keep choosing each other. Even when emotions change, they learned that love speaks softly. In a successful relationship, listening was not about waiting to respond but about understanding what the heart was trying to say. When one spoke, the other listened without judgment, without interruption, without defense. This habit made their love safe. Words were no longer weapons but bridges. By listening with empathy, they learned each other's fears, dreams, and silent struggles, and their relationship deepened into a place where both hearts felt truly heard. Love did not freeze them in time, it allowed them to grow. In their story, success came from supporting each other's evolution. They celebrated each other's progress and held hands through change. Instead of fearing growth, they embraced it together. This habit reminded them that a successful relationship is not about holding someone back but about walking beside them as they become who they are meant to be. Even in love, storms came. Arguments appeared, misunderstandings arose, and silence sometimes filled the room. But they developed a habit of fighting for love, not against each other. Conflict became a conversation, not a competition. They spoke gently, forgave quickly, and remembered why they fell in love in the first place. This habit transformed problems into lessons and pain into deeper connection, proving that successful relationships don't avoid conflict, they handle it with love. Their love survived because it was fed daily. Not by grand gestures, but by small acts, a warm smile, a kind word, a moment of presence. They understood that love needs care, just like a living thing. This habit of consistent affection kept their relationship alive and glowing, reminding them that successful relationships are built not on rare miracles but on everyday magic. In their love story, choosing each other was not a promise made once, but a decision renewed every single morning. Love first arrived like a beautiful accident, effortless and exciting, but staying in love required intention. They discovered that emotions rise and fall like tides, yet commitment remains steady only when both hearts actively choose it. Some days, choosing each other meant laughter echoing through shared moments, hands intertwined with ease and joy. On other days, it meant patience during silence, understanding in misunderstandings, and presence when words failed. Still, the choice was made again and again. They learned that a successful relationship is not sustained by constant romance but by consistent choice. Choosing each other meant prioritizing the relationship even when life demanded attention elsewhere. It meant saying no to distractions and yes to connection. In a world full of options, they chose loyalty. In moments of doubt, they chose trust. This habit slowly transformed love from a fragile feeling into a dependable foundation, teaching them that love grows stronger when it is chosen consciously rather than assumed. There were moments when the spark dimmed and the excitement felt distant, yet they understood that love does not disappear in those moments, it waits to be chosen again. Choosing each other meant staying when leaving felt easier, speaking kindly when anger wanted control, and holding space when one heart felt heavier than the other. This daily choice created safety, allowing both souls to be imperfect without fear of abandonment. They realized that choosing each other also meant choosing growth together. It required forgiveness, understanding, and the courage to rebuild after mistakes. Every choice to stay, to listen, to care, added another layer of depth to their bond. Over time, love became less about butterflies and more about belonging. This habit turned ordinary days into quiet victories, teaching them that a successful relationship is not found, it is chosen repeatedly, in visible moments and invisible ones, through effort, patience, and unwavering devotion. In their love story, listening became an act of love deeper than words. They learned early that hearing sounds was easy, but truly listening required presence. When one heart spoke, the other learned to be still, to put aside pride, assumptions, and the need to be right. Listening with the heart meant feeling the emotion behind every sentence, understanding the silence between words, and recognizing pain even when it was hidden behind a smile. This habit created a space where both felt safe enough to speak their truth. They discovered that many conflicts were not born from disagreement, but from feeling unheard. When they began listening with empathy, arguments softened into conversations. Instead of defending themselves, they tried to understand each other. Instead of reacting, they responded with care. This way of listening turned their relationship into a sanctuary, where vulnerability was not a weakness but a gift. Each shared thought became a thread, weaving their hearts closer together. Listening with the heart also meant patience. Sometimes one needed time to find the right words, and the other learned not to rush the moment. They sat together in silence when words felt heavy, allowing presence to speak louder than language. Through this habit, they learned that love does not always need advice or solutions, sometimes it only needs understanding. A nod, a gentle touch, or a quiet, "I'm here," carried more meaning than 1,000 explanations. They began to listen beyond conversations. They listened to changes in tone, shifts in energy, and the unspoken needs that appeared in everyday moments. When one grew tired, the other noticed. When one felt distant, the other reached closer. This kind of listening required attention, care, and emotional awareness, turning love into something deeply intuitive. As days passed, listening became the language of their connection. It taught them respect, strengthened trust, and deepened intimacy. By listening with the heart rather than just the ears, they allowed each other to feel valued, understood, and emotionally held, creating a relationship where both voices mattered and both hearts felt seen in their love story. Growth was never something to fear, it was something to share. When they first came together, they were two different worlds meeting, each carrying dreams, flaws, and unfinished chapters. Love did not ask them to stay the same. Instead, it invited them to evolve. They learned that a successful relationship is not about freezing time at the moment love begins, but about walking side by side as both hearts change and mature. Growing together meant supporting each other's ambitions without jealousy or insecurity. When one dreamed bigger, the other became a believer. When one stumbled, the other became strength. They understood that growth sometimes creates distance if not handled with care, so they made it a habit to grow in the same direction, even when their paths looked different. This habit allowed love to expand instead of fracture. They talked about their goals, their fears, and the people they wanted to become. In these conversations, love became a partnership rather than a possession. They learned to celebrate each other's achievements, not as competitors but as companions. Every success felt shared, and every failure felt lighter because it was carried together. Growth became a bridge connecting their individual journeys into one shared story. There were moments when change felt uncomfortable. New responsibilities, shifting priorities, and personal transformations tested their bond. But instead of resisting change, they chose understanding. They allowed space without creating distance, freedom without disconnection. This balance taught them that love thrives when it gives room to breathe while remaining deeply rooted. Growing together also meant learning from mistakes. They reflected, adjusted, and improved, not to please each other, but to honor the relationship. Each lesson strengthened their emotional maturity, turning love into something wiser and more resilient. Over time, growth became their shared rhythm, reminding them that when two people choose to evolve together, love does not fade, it deepens, expanding into a bond shaped by patience, encouragement, and mutual becoming. In their love story, conflict was never the enemy, silence and misunderstanding were. They learned that disagreements do not mean the absence of love, but the presence of two different hearts trying to be understood. When arguments appeared, they chose not to raise walls but to open conversations. This habit transformed moments of tension into opportunities for deeper connection, where love learned how to speak even in discomfort. Turning conflict into care required patience. Instead of reacting with anger, they paused to understand what lay beneath the emotion. Hurt was often hiding behind harsh words, and fear was often disguised as frustration. By recognizing this, they softened their tone and replaced blame with curiosity. They asked questions instead of making accusations, creating a space where honesty felt safe and healing felt possible. They understood that winning an argument was never as important as protecting the relationship. So they learned to fight for love, not against each other. Voices stayed gentle, respect remained intact, and forgiveness followed quickly. Even when emotions ran high, they remembered the bond they shared and the history they were building together. This habit allowed conflict to strengthen their relationship rather than weaken it. Care also showed itself in accountability. When mistakes were made, they owned them without excuses. Apologies were sincere, not forced, and change followed words. This taught them that love grows when responsibility is shared and effort is visible. Each resolved conflict became proof that their relationship was resilient, capable of bending without breaking. They also learned the power of repair. A touch after an argument, a quiet moment together, or a reassuring glance spoke volumes. These gestures reminded them that love remained even after disagreement. Over time, conflict became less about pain and more about understanding, less about distance and more about closeness. Through this habit, they discovered that when handled with care, conflict can deepen intimacy, build trust, and turn fragile moments into foundations of lasting love. In their love story, the greatest magic was never loud. It lived quietly in the ordinary moments they chose not to ignore. They learned that love does not survive on grand promises alone, it breathes through small, consistent acts of care. A successful relationship, they discovered, is built in the everyday gestures that say, "You matter," without needing to be spoken aloud. Nurturing love through small acts meant paying attention. It was remembering how the other liked their tea, noticing when their smile felt tired, sensing when a hug was needed more than advice. These moments seemed insignificant to the outside world, yet within their relationship, they carried immense weight. Each small act became a reminder that love was alive, aware, and present. They expressed affection not only in special occasions, but in routine days. A message sent just to check in, a hand held while walking, a meal shared after a long day. These gestures turned normal days into meaningful ones. Love felt steady, not because it was dramatic, but because it was reliable. This habit created emotional security, allowing both hearts to relax into the comfort of being cared for. Small acts also meant kindness during difficult moments. When stress entered the room, they chose gentleness. When exhaustion took over, they chose patience. They understood that love is tested not during celebrations, but during tired evenings and heavy conversations. By showing up with warmth instead of withdrawal, they protected their bond from slowly fading. They nurtured love by making time, even when life felt busy. Time did not always mean hours. Sometimes it was just a few intentional minutes of full attention. In those moments, phones were set aside, eyes met, and presence became the gift. This habit reminded them that love needs attention the way fire needs oxygen. Over time, these small acts accumulated into something powerful. They became proof of effort, signs of devotion, and daily confirmations of care. Love felt nourished, not because it was perfect, but because it was tended to gently and consistently, growing deeper through kindness, awareness, and the quiet choice to show love in ways that mattered every single day.